Okay, whenever the Spirit moves you, hun.
Imagine a long working day if you have a job, or being in class all day and going back and studying all day for 6 or 5 days throughout the week. And that's college life. I feel like we all have felt that so far. Now imagine that time span and that time frame for migrant workers. They spend that whole day, every day, working. Over the past few weeks, I've explored this topic of poor conditions for farm workers that they have to face. To inform you all about the poor working conditions that farm workers have to face, I will describe the hours of labor, the actual working conditions of those hours, and the fear on the job every day that they have to go through. To begin describing the working conditions of farm workers, I will describe the hours of labor they work. Migrant workers have hours not common to regular working hours. For example, I work a typical day of 8 hours, and if I have to work more, I get compensated with overtime pay. However, a farm worker has to work about 10 to 14 hours a day for 6 days throughout the whole week. In an article by the New York Times in August of 2014, writer Joseph Berger explained the life of Antonio, who is a migrant worker. Antonio is a farm worker who had to work from sunrise to sundown for about 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, if he was lucky, if he got that 7th day off. That's typical of a harvest season, which are multiple seasons depending on what is being harvested. And if you're in the heart of harvest season, you typically won't get that last day of break. And because farm workers also have to meet a quota of how much they pick, sometimes they might not even get breaks in that day. So they have to keep working all the way through. Now, if I work 8 hours, I get compensated with 3 different breaks. But they might not even get any breaks. So after speaking about the type of hours the workers work, I'll now describe the conditions that they have to face in those hours. The undocumented workers have to face tough hours, and it is described in the same article from the New York Times by Antonio himself. Quote, "If it is raining, the farmer wants production. He makes us work in the rain. If the temperature surpasses 90 degrees, we are working." So in other words, during harvest season, every day you're working, regardless of the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
However, another thing that farm workers have to face is the things that protect the harvest itself, pesticides. Pesticides are meant to kill bugs and other things, so likely it's not going to be healthy for a person himself to be working near pesticides. Also, because most farm workers are migrant and it depends on which fields they're working, they usually typically live around the area they work with a bunch of other of their co-workers. Because these living conditions are temporary, they aren't typical of what us consider home. It's crowded, unsanitary, lack of plumbing, and it's just uncomfortable to live in. But there's no way of commuting to and from work when you're in an area that's only fields. So they're forced to stay in these conditions. So it could be said that even after a day of work, they're really not going home to rest. The last main aspect undocumented workers have to face would be fear on the job itself. The farm workers' main fear would be deportation. Now, according to Eduardo Gonzalez Jr., a state diversity specialist from Cornell University, he explained that about half the agricultural sector of workers are undocumented. So, not being undocumented poses problems such as speaking out or unionization or just speaking out about conditions themselves. Because if they ever spoke out, they would just be threatened with deportation. So why do these workers keep on working in these conditions? Well, low wages or long hours in the United States is still more than what they would be making in their native country. So it all comes down to money. They all need money, and that money is still more than they'll be making in their hometown. Now, this money, according to the National Farm Worker Ministry, which is an organization to support farm workers, This money is used to support families in their homeland. They either want to eventually retire in their homeland, so they build their homes in their homeland, or because they have children, and just like most parents, they want to give a better education or better lifestyle than they have themselves. So to wrap things up, I described to you the hours of labor, the working conditions themselves, and the fear on the job that these workers face. Although one might question why we spend hours studying and torturing ourselves with homework and even dwelling on how to do this speech, what I have explained to you are all of the points and how to answer the question of what are the working